Your hands together to welcome on stage the founder and chairman of Pay10, Mr. Prabhpreet Singh Gill, to speak on the next frontier of India's digital economy, who is going to be in conversation with Navika Kumar. A big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Hina. Thank you for making such a wonderful introduction. And I'm pleased to get on stage Prabhpreet Singh Gill, and everybody knows him as a Punjab da Puttar, Harry Gill. And it is my pleasure to present to you, ladies and gentlemen, Chairman of Pay10 Global and Chairman of Eastern Fortune Investments, a man whose beginnings are in India. The first question I want to ask you is about the fact that you run a digital payment gateway and a large fintech business across the world with 16 countries where you reach. Mr. Gill, how did this journey really begin?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for having me here. We started this journey in 2017. I do not come from a fintech background. I come from a family business which goes back to 1932. My grandfather had come to Delhi in 1932, started a transportation business. So that's our core business, for my family's core business. But then I did my education in a boarding school here, and then post that I went to London for my higher education, and came back, did my family business. During that family business, I realized that there is a large opportunity in fintech. Because fintech is the future and how the whole payment infrastructure is going to operate and work. So it is 2017, 18 is when we started realizing there's a lot of opportunity and there's a lot of work to be done. So we then acquired an entity which was licensed by RBI, started working on it, renamed it, and then been part of the UPI journey ever since then.
So you started in India and went global. How was it for an Indian who has started his journey in India to make a company from India, a global company, and then come back and look at the opportunities that India itself presents? How do you look at the way India has changed in this period?
I think India is the reason why we went global. Because when we were working with UPI in India, with NPCI, we realized what is the power of a domestic scheme. How powerful of that it is for any country to have that. So the idea and how, in the current government, how they've developed this of such a resilience payment scheme, it is that what encouraged us to take this idea global and work with each sovereign nations and give them an example of this is how a domestic scheme could work. We could completely be resilient. We could be completely dependent on our own payment schemes. And this is how we started setting up an office, our global HQ in UAE. And from there, we started expanding into a lot of countries.
So you're saying the Indian idea on UPI is what you took to the world? Do you think digital payments in India and the platform, the requirement, the need, the manner in which it was done, that has become a case study for the world to follow?
100% correct. That is, today, India is the global leader when it comes to domestic payments. Yes, there are larger domestic payments in China as well, the likes of UnionPay and WeChat. But if you talk about a single domestic payment scheme, UPI, powered by NPCI, is one of the largest domestic schemes in the world.
And when you now take it and go to global countries across the world, can you tell us in how many countries and where all you are operating this?
Currently, we are dealing with 16 regulators across the globe, so 16 countries. We are already licensed in Bahrain, UAE, Egypt, Morocco, almost in principally in Europe and other parts of GCC as well. So when we go to a regulator across the globe and when we do tell them that we are a company based out of India and we tell them that about our story, the first question they ask is, how did UPI become so big? That is the first question. Every regulator asks this question. And how is it possible and how it can be done in that sovereign nation?
So you're saying India is the example and that everybody wants to emulate in terms of the quantum, the volume of payments on a single day that are transacted in India. Is that the reason?
No, the wish is not to reach the quantum and the volume and the GMV. The wish is to become independent and self-reliant on them for a payment infrastructure.
What do you mean by self-reliant?
Today, India could work without any international scheme and survive absolutely normal on their own infrastructure.
So you're saying in challenging times like today, where we have wars in one part of the world, where financial payment gateways are also part of the weaponry that is used, do you think it is really important to be Atmanirbhar?
Atmanirbhar is the whole idea of UPI as Atmanirbhar, and it is not a requirement or a wish. I think it's not a wish, it is a requirement right now. See, any geopolitical situation where it comes in, the first thing every sovereign nation wants to see, what is my dependency on anything? Today, it may be oil, it may be payments, it may be food, it may be anything. As long as there is no dependency, there is no fear. You can fight the war between yourself, but when there is dependency, it's very difficult to fight the war.
And we are finding it out the hard way.
Correct.
As far as oil imports are concerned.
So when you are self-dependent on anything which is important for a day-to-day operation of the country. Today, payments are not just a thing back in the days where it used to be a luxury that you can use. Today, nobody talks about cash. I mean, everybody talks about UPI payments. So today, it is an integral part of your daily livelihood. When you wake up in the morning, before you sleep, you end up doing 1 to 4 transactions in a day. That could be buying a coffee or buying a lunch or making a payment. So it is a part of our daily routine. And anything and everything which is part of our daily routine is a necessity. And if it is a necessity, it becomes for every sovereign nation very important for that necessity to be self-independent.
So let me ask you, we are living in times when there is conflict in West Asia, the GCC countries in the Middle East impacted by it. A large part of Indian remittances come from that region. What is the impact that you're seeing in that market and the transactions related to India?
I would say there is no impact as such because the remittance is still happening. But there was in every panic situation, people like to move money left, right, here and there. That's absolutely normal. But the impact is not on the remittance part. The impact is that what about the domestic transactions? If they were to stop today by any geopolitical reason or any reason from coming from a third nation, how will that affect the daily needs for it? Sending money abroad is today we have interoperability schemes between the nations. It's possible. That is not a necessity or a daily need. It is something which you do once a month. When you get salary, you get a monthly salary, you get a week, usually it's a monthly salary by WPS, you get in any GCC nation, and out of that salary, you send money back home. So, you will not see a huge impact there. But what you will see a huge impact is what is happening on a daily situation, which is not an impact. I did not see any impact in UAE right now. Everything is working up to normal right now. I've been there for 3 weeks.
You've been there for 3 weeks, yeah, and how's the situation? How would you describe the situation for residents living in...
I've been going to Dubai Mall every day.
Dubai Mall every day?
Every day.
Life is normal?
Every day life is normal.
What about the missiles and...
I mean, they are being intercepted, but they're not falling on me or anywhere near to the town.
Many questions are also being asked on the stability of businesses there,
See, the impact cannot be counted at this point of time. The only reason for that was there are other important factors which actually slows down the system during this time, because one is a Ramadan month, so everybody is fasting. Most people are work from home. And then there was Eid breaks and schools were off. So the actual impact can only be calculated post next week when people are actually going back to work. Till now, either they were offs, either there was work from home, and anyways, in the month of Ramadan for 1 month, you always see economic impact in the entire region. because everybody's fasting, everybody's focusing on the religious reasons. So the actual impact and the calculation can only be done post next week.
So you're saying all is well?
As of now, yes.
Let me ask you, India's digital economy is evolving and set to attain a 20% of the country's GDP by about 2030. Do you think in this finance setup, a great growth for companies like yours?
Absolutely very important setup. See, today, there's the SMEs in the region, in India. The 40% of exports come from them. We call it SMEs or MSMEs. So now, if the 40% of export, the contribution is from them, it is very important for these entities to have very smoother payment platforms for them to get their money back home. Hence, RBI came with a regulation. It's called Payment Aggregator Cross-Border, where today a small business house could sell goods abroad across the world, and they do not have to deal with a foreign currency or a foreign bank. A fintech company like us, who's got licensed under PACB, we could onboard them in India, in Pay10 India, and collect their payments from Europe, US, across the world, and settle them at timely manner in India, in their domestic bank account. So yes, fintech will play a very important role because getting money in is still a challenge with the traditional banking system. You see a settlement delay for when the payment is made, from that to receive into your bank account, it's usually 7 to 21 working days, which could be brought down to, say, 7 days. So that plays a very big role. One, ease of doing business, and second, is their dependency on capital which they have to create in order to fund these extra 20 days.
So Harry Gill, I want to ask you, fintech, an area that you got into, how good are, people from Punjab doing that? How easy or tough was it for you to begin this business, expand it, have a global outlook? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
I think I would be the leading example. I am one of the only UBUs in the world who run a fintech company across so many nations. So this is, I always say to my father and my mother that I think I want to create an example. That it is not something which we cannot do it. It is not something which is not in our bread and in our blood to do this. I mean, it's absolutely normal. And the fact that I am doing it, any Punjabi can do it.
पंजाब के लोग वैसे बिजनेस कुछ और करते हैं, फिनटेक नहीं कर पाएंगे. नॉर्मल इंप्रेशन ये आपसे कभी किसी ने कुछ कहा?
काफी लोगों ने कहा, तो मैंने उनको ये कहा, मौका देके दीजिए, तभी पता चलेगा. मौका दिया, हमने करके दिखाया. दोबारा किसी और बिजनेस मौका दो, वो भी करके दिखाएंगे.
Well, the spirit of enterprise that a homegrown Punjabi boy has brought. Are there any experiences in your life that have taught you lessons of, how to handle a situation that was tough and move forward?
See, my grandfather was a very visionary man. Like I told you, he was a very forward-looking person. Even though he was from Punjab and his father was a farmer, he came to Delhi, like I told you before, he came to Delhi in 1932. He was also a very innovative person, very sold his agriculture land, and came and bought 2 trucks here. And then he realized that he may not have a driver for them. Because trucks, you don't used to run on diesel engine then, they used to run on coal. So it was just a bold move. And I got to learn a lot from my grandfather and from my father. And they just said that in every situation you have to deal it from the ground. You cannot deal with a top-bottom approach where you see stuff from a very top-bottom approach. In everything you have to see what is the use case you can solve to solve that problem. If you create any business around it, it will work. So today also when we do any business, we don't see, oh, fintech, 18 billion transactions a month, this is what we do. It says, what is that we can solve?
In a common man's life.
In a common man's life. And if we can solve that, there is a business behind it. So today, our focus in Pay10 India is that all the banks have got a mandate under the Prime Minister scheme to open bank accounts for everybody, for every daily wage worker. But at the same time, banks already are heavily loaded with their own work. So the scheme may be there to open the bank account, but the banks may not feel that it is their priority. But what we want to do is we want to focus on how daily wage workers, why do they have to open a bank account? Why can't they have a UPI app? And we pay into that UPI app. They can have a Pay10 app. It will take them, in order to open a bank account, they have to sign 3 forms. To download the app, they have to sign one OTP.
So you're saying a common man probably instead of opening a bank account can just have a UPI app, and that can increase the depth of the financial empowerment of the common man?
Absolutely, I feel. See, a common man who's on a daily wage worker, he doesn't have big dreams to take loans. His job is very simple. He's had a hard day at work. He's got his money. He wants to eat food. He wants to go back home. He wants to get paid. That's it. So for that, there should not be need for cash. And there's absolutely that sector where you can do financial inclusion. Because he can have a UPI app. He gets paid in the app. He gets paid in the wallet which he's created. And after that, he spends the money. He can buy vegetables. There's UPI QR code available. He can buy milk. There's UPI QR code available. So for his daily needs and whatever he's doing, he doesn't need to deal it with cash. But the fact that, see, a common man doesn't have a time to go to a branch. He has to do his diary, he has to do his work, and then he has to go home and eat. He has to cook and he has to go home and eat. Now, in that time, you are expecting him to go to a branch for 1 hour and operate. And then you want him to support the financial inclusion, that's asking too much.
So technology, do you think that can be an impediment?
100% is possible. Why? I don't see why it's not possible. I don't see why would he...
एक किसान का बेटा जाकर डाउनलोड कर लेगा ऐप और ओटीपी कर लेगा, उसका बाप भी कर लेगा, दादा भी कर लेगा.
किसान का बेटा व्हाट्सएप पे रील्स तो देखता ही है ना, यूट्यूब भी देखता है. अगर यूट्यूब भी देखता है, रील्स भी देखता है, व्हाट्सएप भी करता है, तो एक ऐप और डाउनलोड कर लेगा.
बहुत बड़ी बात आपने कही. बिल्कुल आजकल टेक्नोलॉजी ने ये पॉसिबल कर दिया है.
100%. And the fact that in every single area of the country, there is internet available. And by the way, even without internet as well, there is a scheme by NPCI. Even feature phones can be used to make UPI payments. So अगर आपके पास internet नहीं भी है
और स्मार्टफोन नहीं भी है
तो पेमेंट हो सकती है. Of course, it's not widely adopted yet, but as long as mobile में SMS की सर्विस है, ऑपरेट हो सकता है.
The crucial data, how crucial are data centers, and do you think India could leverage the situation and act as a potential destination for data centers, and what happens about their security?
See, this is a very important point. Very strangely, I've been discussing this point with the central bank in UAE. I think there are 2 aspects of it. Aspect 1 is that every country wants to host the data in their own jurisdiction. So today in Indian banks or Indian, a government would not like that their customers' data is being hosted in Europe. So the first priority is that every data has to be hosted in a sovereign nation. Now that's a normal life situation. Now you talk of a DR situation. DR situation is where disaster situation is required. DR recovery has to be done. I think what the next step which India can help and other nations need to focus is to set up their own data centers, have bilateral ties. Today, UAE could set up their own data center in UAE. India could set up their own data center by a homegrown entity in India and have bilateral ties in the situation where an internet war breaks out, where they could actually switch their entire servers from UAE to India because they have a bilateral tie. So India could have it with Singapore, Singapore could have it with UAE, UAE could have it with regions which are a little far in nature. And from there, they can, in the situation where there's no internet, where there's no Wi-Fi, payments can keep running. And for the temporary situation, the disaster situation could be then switched to other countries. So for that, not just data centers have to be developed by each sovereign nation for their own data. Also, there has to be bilateral ties for the situation, for the worst situation, which we cannot say it cannot happen because it's happening right now.
Yes, it is happening, and we live in a world where everything is possible as far as disaster is concerned. In the end, Prabhpreet Gill ji, I want to ask you, is there a dream policy wish that you still have that can take the digital economy to the next level in India?
So we are working on one project. I cannot name the project right now. We're working on a project where we feel that if bilateral ties are focused, there is no need, if remittances or money movement has to happen between the countries, it doesn't need to go to New York and come back.
So you're saying bilateral ties will
Lateral currency, bilateral ties, where money can move between dirham and rupee directly. Money can move between rupee and yen directly. Money can move between any currency to any currency directly. We're already working on a project with BIS on that. We're the only fintech in the world who's working on the project. So that is something, if you ask, is my interoperable dream.
Yeah, the multipolar world is seeing a lot of problems because equations between countries have become extremely complicated.
It's become complicated from where the money moves itself. So just that gives us more reason why we should have our own payment systems. Now, see, UPI is the best example. We developed UPI, the Honorable Prime Minister pushed for it, the NPCI pushed for it, and we saw it happening. Why can't we have UPI operate with ANI, which is the UPI version of UAE, directly? Why do we need to involve a third sovereign nation for that? I don't think there's a need. Technically, it's possible. Yes, I am not saying that will replace the infrastructure, but technically it's possible. And that is, if you ask me about my dream, yes, that is my dream.
Let me ask you, your faith in the dollar versus yuan, where is it today?
Today, Yuan.
Yuan?
Yes, of course. Today, if you ask me today, if you ask me next week, it might change. But today, yes. Because I do not feel, see, as an individual, we do not feel that a currency could be used as a leverage to decide trades.
Well, but the world is changing so fast. What stands true today may not stand true tomorrow.
Absolutely.
We live in a fluid world, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you
so
very
much.
much, Mr. Prabhpreet Gill, for joining us here and for being a poster boy of India in the fintech space.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gill, and Navika ma'am. Felicitating Mr. Gill with that token of appreciation. A big round of applause, please.